Let me say something that might sound extreme at first, but please hear me out. 3D printing itself could end up being treated like a criminal activity, not because of what most people are doing with it, not because of how the technology actually works, but because of how it's being written into law. And here's the thing, I do 3D printing, I use it, I enjoy it, I rely on it for legal, practical, everyday projects. And honestly, I didn't want this to be my first video about 3D printing. I would have much rather started with something creative, something educational, something positive. But what's happening right now makes that impossible to ignore. There are proposed laws that don't just misunderstand 3D printing. They risk harming everyone who uses it responsibly, and that's what I want to explain. In Washington state, lawmakers have introduced House Bills 2320 and 2321 for the 2025 to 2026 legislative session. On paper, these bills claim to target untraceable firearms. And when people hear that phrase, many stop listening, but the details matter because the language in these bills is broad and vague laws almost always create unintended consequences. These bills don't stop at criminal misuse. They reach into 3D printers, slicing and design software, digital files shared online. Some sections suggest that printers or software should be required to prevent users from creating certain designs. But here's the problem. A 3D printer doesn't understand intent. Software doesn't understand context. What code doesn't know, legality, or that's simply not how this technology works. This approach treats 3D printers like we'd treat blenders or car parts. People can make unhealthy food with a blender. People can cause accidents with cars. But we don't regulate blenders because people get unhealthy. And we don't regulate spark plugs because people crash cars. Because those are tools. And tools don't carry intent. People do. Because of that broad language, liability doesn't stop with criminals. It can affect manufacturers, sellers, software developers, hobbyists, educators, maker spaces, small businesses, including people printing completely legal, harmless parts every day. This directly impacts open source communities, education, innovation, small-scale manufacturing. But a 3D printer is a neutral tool. The same printer can produce a bracket, a repair part, a classroom project, a medical aid. The printer cannot determine how an object will be used, whether it's legal or what its final purpose will be. Trying to force that judgment into software breaks the entire system. Once laws begin regulating tools instead of behavior, they don't stop at one tool. Today, it's 3D printers. Tomorrow, it's CNC machines, and then laser cutters, then software itself. At that point, innovation suffers, not criminals. Now, let's move across the country. In New York, Governor Kathy Hochul proposed a law requiring all 3D printers sold in the state to include software that blocks the creation of guns, calling it common sense. The problem is that this assumes the technology can do something it simply can't. This is what happens when regulation is written without technical understanding. Code cannot infer meaning. A design file doesn't explain its future use. A shape doesn't announce its legality. Any attempt to enforce this through software leads to overblocking legitimate uses, false positives, broken workflows. That's not opinion. That's how software systems behave. Even if you don't live in Washington State or New York State, this still affects you because laws like this don't stay isolated. They become templates. If one state passes it, others follow, and suddenly pressure builds at a national level. At that point, the conversation isn't about one bill anymore. This isn't about panic, it's about paying attention. These bills deserve scrutiny. They deserve technical input. They deserve public discussion because once they pass, the opportunity to influence them is gone. I have my thoughts on gun laws, and I am sure you do too. But no matter my thoughts or your thoughts on gun laws, this isn't about guns. It's about what happens when lawmakers regulate tools they don't fully understand, and that should concern everyone, whether you own a 3D printer or not. My final thought is, if you care about innovation, education, or small creators, this is worth watching closely.